Mehdi Hasan absolutely unloads on the Trump administration in this exchange, exposing what critics say were disastrous actions tied to Venezuela. And he does not sugarcoat a single thing. The entire narrative completely falls apart as Hasan breaks down the contradictions, the hypocrisy, and the political damage surrounding the situation. Before we dive into the full story, comment where you're watching from, and don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. This is one of those moments that leaves people stunned because the criticism is direct, relentless, and impossible to ignore. We're going to watch the full clip first, and then I'll give you my commentary at the end. Full link is down in the description below. Let's get into it.
I would say that, those of us who are old enough, you and I, to remember the Iraq War in 2003, people like myself who claimed that Bush and Cheney went into Iraq for oil, we were dismissed as conspiracy theorists. They said it was no, WMDs, Al-Qaeda, democracy. Trump isn't doing that. People who claim this isn't about oil just need to listen to Donald Trump speaking, or Peter Hegseth speaking. They're all being or Stephen Miller, they're all being very open about this, that it is about oil. Donald Trump has been obsessed with Venezuela's oil for a decade now, as I outlined in a piece for Zateo yesterday. Andy McCabe, who was the deputy director of the FBI, wrote a memoir in 2019 where he said Trump had said at the time in his first term, why aren't we invading Venezuela? They're the country with all the oil. So he's been obsessed with oil in Venezuela since his first term. He hasn't hidden it, as you pointed out, with all those references yesterday. It's actually outrageous. This is 19th century imperial plunder to say we're going to go into another country and we're going to steal all the oil, which is a phrase he used for Iraq. He also said that it will pay for itself. And again, sorry to bring up Iraq, but Ali, you remember George Bush.
No, but this is important because this was the big selling point for Iraq, that this whole thing will pay for itself. The oil that we get out of the ground in Iraq will pay for the military action and the stabilization of Iraq.
And Paul Wolfowitz said it, Donald Rumsfeld said it, George Bush said it, Dick Cheney said it. Actually, Iraq ended up costing the American taxpayer between $2 and $3 trillion. Experts on Venezuela say just rebuilding the oil industry there will cost between 50 and 60 billion. It's going to take several years. But Trump is claiming it's our oil, which is so outrageous, and every American should be outraged by that. By the way, you mentioned drugs. Let's just talk about drugs for a moment. He's being charged in New York for cocaine trafficking. No mention of fentanyl in the indictment, which we were told was the big reason to blow up boats in the Caribbean. It's cocaine now. And here's the problem for Donald Trump here, which is he just pardoned the former president of Honduras, who wasn't just indicted for cocaine trafficking. He was convicted in American court, sentenced to 45 years. In prison for 45 years, and Donald Trump just a few months ago pardoned the former president of Honduras, who trafficked 400 tons of cocaine into the U.S. So this idea that it's about cocaine is also absurd. And I would also point out, for those of you who haven't read the indictment, Nicolas Maduro is also being charged with machine gun possession, which I find hilarious from a Republican administration that is obsessed with allowing weapons of war on our streets. Apparently, you can't have guns. You have to have guns in America, but a foreign leader has to abide by some 1934 American Firearms Act. Bizarre.
So I want to put up a chart that you had a version of talking about how much oil Venezuela has. It's actually got the world's largest reserves of oil in billions of barrels, 303 billion barrels. Just to compare, Saudi Arabia has 267, Iran has 209, Iraq has 145 billion barrels, America has 45 billion barrels. This is oil reserves. This is not readily available necessarily, but it's the oil available. This is important because the vice president, who is now apparently the acting president of Venezuela, has said we will be no one's colony. This chart is the history of American colonialism or British colonialism, right? It's that countries have resources. We don't really care about the status of your government or your good governance or democracy or freedom or liberty. We care about your stuff.
Of course, and Donald Trump, the only difference between Donald Trump and his predecessors is that Trump is very open about it. He's very brazen about it. He's unashamed about look, all American presidents have allied with dictators, going back to FDR meeting the Saudi king after World War II to do a deal with the Saudis over oil. The difference with Donald Trump is that he embraces MBS in a way that other American presidents might not praise MBS, and he embraces dictators around the world, even dictators of countries that we're supposedly, adversaries with. He loves the North Korean dictator. He said it himself. I wrote him love letters. So Trump is very open about the fact that he doesn't care about democracy. He doesn't care about human rights. He's happy to ally with all sorts of dictators as long as you do what he wants. And I wonder why Maduro didn't just offer him the oil and a Trump tower in Caracas, which would probably have saved his position. And you mentioned the vice president. Yes, she's saying all this stuff, but people who are much more expert on Venezuela than me are saying that actually she's almost certainly done a deal with the American government, or in the process of doing a deal. And Rubio hinted at this yesterday. For her to stay in power, for the rest of the regime and the government to stay in power, because they haven't come out and said the entire government should go. They haven't got everyone else who's accused of drug trafficking in the Venezuelan government. And by the way, Donald Trump has thrown Mariana Machado, the Nobel Peace Prize winning Venezuelan opposition.
I want to underscore this. She won the
bus.
Nobel. The opposition is largely coalesced around her. Opposition is a tricky term in Venezuela because it's not a monolith, but they've largely coalesced around her. One would have thought that he would say, and we have this woman waiting in the wings, and she's ready to take over. He basically threw her under the bus during the press conference yesterday in favor of the sitting vice president of Venezuela.
Yeah, it's classic Donald Trump, where he basically upsets everyone and pisses off everyone. So you're the opposition are thinking this is going to be our moment. He throws the opposition leader under the bus. By the way, with Donald Trump, it's always personal. He's been annoyed that she won the Nobel Peace Prize that he thought was his. That's what this is about. Let's be very open about it. Trump is annoyed at this woman for winning a prize that he thought he should have. Even though she sucked up to him, she dedicated the prize to him, she started talking like him. Doesn't matter. Donald Trump will throw everyone under the bus. He threw her under the bus. So he's got rid of Maduro. He's upset the global South, a lot of the developing world, a lot of those of us who believe in international law and national sovereignty, and at the same time he hasn't appeased or made the Venezuelan opposition abroad happy because he hasn't put their people in power either. So he's just done what the oil companies want. Let's be honest, he promised American oil companies a lot of money if they voted for him, if they endorsed him, if they donated to him during the campaign, and this is a reward. And I think more Democrats, more people should be pointing out this oil argument is not some conspiracy theory. It's happening in plain sight. And I noticed someone like James Tallarico, who's running for the Senate in Texas, made this argument very eloquently on social media yesterday. I think more Democrats need to be pointing this brazen corruption out. Americans don't want our military and our government to go to war in general. They certainly don't want to go to war for some 19th century imperialist project.
By the way, Donald Trump brought up the Nobel Peace Prize again, or at least the idea that he keeps on solving wars. He upped it to 8.25 conflicts that he ended. He actually said this yesterday, talking about Cambodia and Thailand. That's the core.
Can I just say, can we finally put this BS to bed that Donald Trump is the peace president, he's anti-war, he's isolationist, he's on a neocon. This man bombed 7 countries, Ali, last year. 7 countries. I can't think of an American president in living memory who bombed 7 countries in a year. Nigeria, Somalia, Yemen, Syria, Iran, Iraq, Venezuela. He bombed these countries in 1 year. And then he begins the new year threatening Iran. He said, we're locked and loaded. And then he starts, January 3rd, bombs Venezuela and basically kidnaps the president. And I'm glad, Ali, that you, unlike a lot of other journalists, didn't use the words arrested or detained or captured, because the United States has no authority to do what it did on Saturday. We are not the world's police force. We don't have jurisdiction to go into other countries and just grab their leaders and the first lady of that country and bring them to us. Think about how absurd that is. Does that mean
one of your reporters
can now indict Trump in their courts and send a SEAL team in here?
One of your reporters published something yesterday afternoon which was very specific. It says there are very specific conditions under which a country can cross into another country to take military action, let alone kidnapping their leader. They're very specific. This is not gray area at all.
Yeah. So J.D. Vance claimed yesterday that the legal rationale for this operation was that the DOJ had indicted him. This was a law enforcement operation, which is absurd. Think about that. Can a future American president, can a Democratic president now come in and say, hey, Bukele in El Salvador, don't like him. Let's indict him and send in SEAL Team 6 to get him. Can a foreign country indict Donald Trump in their domestic courts and send in their special forces into D.C. to try and grab the president of the U.S.? This is madness. No one accepts the legal basis for this. And by the way, J.D. Vance, Tulsi Gabbard, all these people spent years saying we're against regime change wars. We're against intervening in Venezuela in Gabbard's case. Where is Tulsi Gabbard right now? Why is J.D. Vance not resigning on principle? What happened to all these people who said Trump would end the endless wars?
And this is exactly why Mehdi Hasan's argument hit so hard, because he's pointing to what critics believe is the real motivation behind all of this: power, influence, and Venezuela's massive oil reserves. According to Hasan, the administration tried to frame this as some noble mission for democracy, but the messaging completely falls apart when you look at Trump's own comments over the years. And people have seen this pattern before. That's why so many critics immediately bring up Iraq and the weapons of mass destruction narrative. Huge promises, dramatic claims, military involvement. And then later, the public is left asking what the real goal actually was. What also makes this so controversial is the bigger principle behind it. If one country can simply decide another leader is guilty and take action without proper international process or oversight, where does that line end? That's the question Hasan forces viewers to think about here, and it's exactly why this exchange is getting so much attention online right now. Let me know what you think in the comments below. And if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and subscribe for more political commentary.